So in this video, we're going to talk about 5 key trends in sports science in 2026 and what they mean for you as a practitioner. The first trend is about artificial intelligence, but perhaps not in the way you might expect, because we've spoken about AI for the last few years anyway. But now access to AI is no longer the differentiator in sports science. Many platforms have AI built into it, and most people and practitioners have experimented with tools like ChatGPT or other large language models. The differentiator in 2026 then will be the quality of the questions that we ask of AI. We're already seeing AI integrated into our everyday lives, in our professional lives, in athlete management systems, reporting tools, our analysis workflows. And perhaps the biggest risk in using AI in these tools is that it gives us confident sounding answers to sometimes poorly framed questions. And that highlights the importance of prompt engineering. This has become a thinking skill. It's about how well you can define the problem, apply constraints, and understand context, as well as recognizing potential bias. So it is a very similar skill, in fact, to being a scientist. I discussed prompt engineering at length recently in a discussion with Professor Greg Haff, where we explored this idea that AI doesn't replace expertise, it can help to amplify it.
We all have GPSs on our phones now, and it's always funny to watch people use their GPS to navigate around cities. I remember a time when we had to be able to use a map, read a map, figure it out, determine where you need to go. And oftentimes when people's GPSs don't work, they can't figure out where to go. I look at AI in the same way. If we become so over-reliant on the AI, but don't understand how the AI is getting to its destination or its information, that becomes problematic. But that's where prompt engineering can come in, because I can actually prompt the AI to explain how it made its conclusion.
So a poorly framed question from someone without that domain expertise can be misleading for sure, compared to a well-framed question from a practitioner who understands the sport, the athlete, and the environment. And that combination can be incredibly powerful. So in 2026, the practitioners getting the most value from AI won't be the ones necessarily using it the most or using the most different tools. It will be the ones that are asking the better questions. So our second trend follows on directly really from AI, because we don't have a data problem in sport anymore. We have a decision-making problem. Most teams now have more access to more data than they can meaningfully interpret. We have plenty of dashboards, we have automated reports. So in 2026, the critical skill won't be understanding necessarily just what a metric is. It'll be understanding how to make a decision under uncertainty. Uncertainty is an innate aspect of science altogether, as well as sports science. Yet we still have to make decisions under this uncertainty. And so decision literacy is about recognizing noise in your data, noise from your technology. It's about understanding threshold and appreciating the consequences of action against inaction, all the while understanding the limitations in the data that we're collecting. This is probably most obvious in the area of load monitoring, which is why in my Fundamentals of Load Monitoring course, I put so much emphasis on the so what. So what? So what are you going to do about that data, if anything? Here, for example, is my load management intervention hierarchy. It's essentially a menu of the different interventions that we could make if, based on our load monitoring system, we had a desire to either reduce or increase an athlete's training load. I therefore need decision-making skills utilizing my load management system to determine if I feel an intervention should be made, and if so, which of these options I would recommend. So moving forward, the question isn't just what data do we have, It's what decisions are we best equipped to make? And as data access and data collection in sports science continues to expand and evolve in 2026, I think it's this decision literacy that will set apart sports science practitioners. The third trend then is about load, but not just load in the physical sense. So in 2026, we continue to have congested fixture schedules in domestic leagues in sports. We also have a number of major tournaments, including the FIFA Men's World Cup, the Winter Olympics and Paralympics, the Commonwealth Games, and in rugby union, you have the new World Rugby Nations Championships. So competitive fixtures are continuing to increase. In these contexts, then athletes aren't just dealing with training and competition. They're dealing with the realities of being an athlete, the uncertainty around selection, media scrutiny, travel fatigue, disruptive routines, as well as the emotional pressure of performing, particularly in such high stakes tournament environments. I've written on my blog previously about how important the impact of this psychosocial load is on our athletes. I link it into something I call the training adaptability prediction problem. And that's whilst we focus so much on external load, training adaptation does not occur in a vacuum and is therefore not solely controlled or predictable based on what the physical load numbers are. That means as practitioners, we shouldn't get solely caught up with GPS data and our external load tracking numbers. You can see in this slide, which is taken from our Fundamentals of Load Monitoring course in collaboration with Sport Horizon, that external load then only provides one dimension of this holistic multivariate load monitoring cycle. By combining physiological and subjective measures of dose and response, we better capture the effects of such psychosocial factors on our athletes. It extends to shaping the environment and trying to have a positive influence on this training adaptability, which we can do through communication, through feedback, through expectation management, and trying to provide psychological safety to our athletes. You can read more about that in the blog I've written about the training adaptability prediction problem, which I will link to below. Overall, then, I think in 2026, managing load effectively will arguably require a much broader definition of what load actually is. The fourth trend focuses on women's sport and specifically how we explain injury and performance risk. There has been a huge increase in attention on female athlete health, which are discussed in the last few years of these trends videos. And of course, that is a positive step forward. But whilst we're seeing increasing attention and understanding on the biological side of the female athlete through hormones, menstrual cycle, and the female anatomy, this has almost caused a little bit of tension in research circles around the argument between biology versus sociology. Some believe we oversimplify the complex issue by leaning too heavily on biological explanations. Of course, biology matters, but perhaps it's not the full story. There are also many pointing to system-level drivers of injury and performance in women's sport. Things like competition exposure, recovery time, travel demands, and crucially, professionalization gaps and access to support. Not just now at the elite level, but also what the elite players coming through now have had access to in terms of training history throughout their youth development and now at the elite level. For example, this figure by Professor Sophia Nymphius and Dr. Stacey Emmons, based on a survey of 170 strength and conditioning coaches, illustrates the potential disparities in cumulative strength and conditioning training exposure between genders throughout academy ages. And clearly, this training history disparity will have implications for the development of musculoskeletal robustness. And as Joanne Parsons and her colleagues write in their BJSM review on ACL injury, we cannot simply tell girls and women to get stronger to reduce injury risk if society and the environment do not support those types of activities for everyone. So I think in 2026, progress in women's sport, both practically and in research, won't come just from asking what's different biologically between men and women, but from asking what environments are our female athletes being asked and expected to perform and recover in. The final trend for 2026 brings the focus back to you as the practitioner. With increasing complexity, responsibility, and perhaps scrutiny in sports science roles, career sustainability is becoming a performance issue for staff in its own right. Practitioners are being asked to integrate more data, make perhaps higher stake decisions, communicate across more stakeholders, and arguably, I think, take on greater emotional load given this involvement. So we need to put the right support and resourcing around us to try and support that. For successful practitioners, it continues to be about combining both those technical skills and knowledge with also the interpersonal skills, decision-making, but also communication and collaboration with those around you. Perhaps with this continuing increase in attention on data, you'd focus more on the data science skills, as I've discussed with my Fundamentals of Load Monitoring course, which combines those data science skills with the underpinning scientific understanding as well. Or perhaps you decide to focus more on the practical skills, whether that's on-pitch, rehab or fitness coach skills, or diving into more the S&Cs that work in terms of the weight room or the gym. It's becoming increasingly overwhelming to decide how to develop yourself as a practitioner and where to take your career. And I know from speaking with many of you that there's also increasing interest in perhaps becoming self-employed or exploring avenues for careers that are really starting to emerge. These kinds of career decisions, that's an area that I'll be developing more resources about in the future in 2026, particularly for sports science practitioners navigating their long-term careers both inside and outside of sports team settings. So sustainable performance isn't just about athletes. It applies to the people supporting them as well. So those are the 5 key sports science trends I see shaping 2026. If there's one theme that runs through all of them, I think it's that our roles as practitioners are continuing to evolve. We are not just collecting data or applying protocols. We're thinking critically, making decisions under uncertainty, shaping environments, and supporting both staff and athlete well-being. If you want to explore some of the topics in more depth, I've linked to the relevant blogs as well as my Fundamentals of Load Monitoring course below. And as always, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and come back again soon so you don't miss out on another Sports Science Insights video.